The Competition Commission and the Competition Tribunal are jointly hosting the 18th Annual Competition Law, Economics and Policy Conference. The conference is taking place in Sandton and has brought together academics, policymakers and even experts. It is set to explore developments in competition policy as well as enforcement in South Africa over the last 25 years. Dr Frederich Kirsten from the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg joins us now to weigh in on the Competition Commission's annual summit. Dr. Kirsten, great having you with us. A good day. So let's first understand, just for the benefit of our viewers as well, the role that is played by the Competition Commission in ensuring that there's actually fair market practice across all sectors in the country, and why it is so important to have such a summit.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on the show. Well, they are very important for South Africa in terms of just ensuring that competition remains stable in the country, because those competition regulations and policies are so important to really keep prices low enough for consumers to buy, but also for companies, small, medium business enterprises to actually make money off it. So it's so important for them to strike a right balance between the policies to put in place to really protect consumers, but also to protect producers like the small, medium business enterprises, and especially for development of South Africa in terms of addressing the issues of the trifecta of high unemployment, inequality and poverty. So they're vital, and even this summit coming up is quite important. Since inflation has stabilized in South Africa, it's important now to keep it low enough so consumers can get that confidence to start spending again, so we can kickstart the economy, because there is projections that we're going to see the economy grow in the next few quarters and also in the next year.
Doctor, that's exactly what I wanted to say. The current food prices as well as general cost of living had been a topical debate due to, of course, the high inflation, as you've just mentioned, and it was not locally, but globally as well. And this has forced consumers to use food sparingly and be mindful of making that buck go even further. So what tips would you then advise them on furthering this mindset of still saving, as we're not sure what tomorrow will look like? As you've pointed out, the latest indicators is that our GDP actually grew by 0.4%. The finance, the real estate, as well as business service sectors also being the major contributors to this growth. But this is no way, does not mean that we are in the clear at this stage.
Yes, if I can give advice to consumers, I would say they must be mindful of their budget and also to not overspend, because this period can easily lead to overspending, where you take on a lot of more debt because interest rates are falling. You see it as an opportunity to maybe take on debt, but again, interest rate can rise quite quickly given the geopolitical conditions. So South Africa's inflation is very dependent on what is happening with the rand and the outside world, and that can quickly change. So it is to be cautious, but still to feel a bit of optimism in the air regarding economic growth moving forward in South Africa, as we are now in a period where it looks like things are stabilizing from the energy sector, transport, that we are now moving into a period where there's going to be substantial economic growth to get us out of this growth trap. And when I mean substantial, anything above 1%, hopefully 1 to 2% would be nice.
And there's, of course, the furore and the excitement around the two-pot withdrawals there, Doctor, everybody dipping in. So at this stage, would you then say it is time to maybe just at least, spend on those nice things, those need-to-haves, by looking at the trajectory that our economy is taking?
Yes, I think if we can get into a phase where people start spending, then that will actually lead to more jobs being created, because spending leads to income for other people, as we see with the multiplier effect. And I think with South Africa, we've been in a low growth trap for a while now. So I think there is some optimism that we can start spending a bit, but also be cautious about spending too much, because debt is also something that you don't want, given the political uncertainty, or not in South Africa, but more the geopolitical uncertainty that can still arise from the outside world that can still push inflation back up. But currently things are looking very good in terms of a platform for growth and spending.
And then, Doctor, you spoke about policy as well as regulation. What do you think is currently needed to boost, of course, our current legislation pertaining to, we know there's been issues around the financial sector. There's a lot of scams going around in the banking sector as well as the goods and services markets.
Yes, so from the Competition Commission, it's about, again, regulation, making sure they protect the consumer. So any policy and regulation that can put in place that can actually reduce those irregular spending is so important, because that is really where consumers get hurt, and price fixing and so on. So again, this is a time where every regulation identity in South Africa should actually create a platform for the consumers to spend and lift us out of this growth trap. So I think that is where their focus should be. And again, emphasizing the role of small, medium business enterprises in South Africa, so they can employ more people and we can start creating those much needed jobs for youth unemployment in the country.
And in closing, Doctor, just on that point of small, medium enterprises, I mean, food safety in respect of the influx of foreign imports and some locally produced yet often fall into the wrong hands, where sell-by dates are removed or even tampered with, and some victims actually losing their lives from consuming such products is another one that has been hogging the headlines. So how can we then take extra cautionary measures when dealing with especially informal traders, and being able to also report where there is malpractice, particularly through bodies like your Competition Commission?
Yes, South Africa is in desperate need of that, in terms of we need to make sure we regulate those. We can easily get, we should maybe invest more in AI-driven technology to actually regulate and to report on those issues, because it's so important to make sure our local producers are also protected, and then consumers also protected, so that they build the economy, and to also be vigilant about where you buy and so on. But it's also important to make sure you buy safely, and don't just look at the price, but also the quality of the product. But it's important for regulation to also step in those cases.
Great input this afternoon. Thank you so much for that. That is Dr. Frederich Kirsten, the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg.